Last week, we talked about a viral tweet from a local freelance journalist, Meg St-Esprit. It included her email signature that said she may be slower to respond in the months of June, July, and August due to the United States' inability to provide affordable childcare for working mothers. Insider reports in 34 states the cost to send an infant or toddler to a child care center is actually higher than tuition at an in-state public university. And data from the Department of Labor shows when the cost of child care rises by 10% in a county, 1% of moms in that area leave the workforce. This is why it's such an important conversation to have. Meg joins me now to talk about the tweet and underlying issue she and many other families face. Brava, Meg.
Thank you.
Really, I think that the reason this has gone viral is because it speaks to so many families.
Right. I mean, it was something I kind of did in the spur of the moment, but immediately I started getting a response realizing, and across the spectrum, you know, politically, socioeconomically, like parents, working parents were like, yes. This is difficult.
It's really difficult. And, you know, I think this runs the gamut from people who are working from home and working in an office. No matter what, even if you're working from home, you can't do both effectively at the same time. If your kids are home from school for the summer,
right?
You can't do your job, watch them, and childcare is really expensive.
It really is. I mean, yesterday was our first day with all the kiddos home. My husband and I both worked from home yesterday, and we lost our temper more than we wanted to.
Right.
We watched more screens than we wanted to, took little Jaunt to the library to break up the day. Yeah, there's my husband, he's not here today. My kiddos are watching.
I know, they're here in the studio. Hi, kids. And I love that you brought them with you too. So I want to talk to you about the response. What has it been like? Has it been really positive?
You know, it really has. And I've written some things in the past that have obviously brought out a lot of controversy, a lot of hate mail, things like that. This one has not. I mean, by and large, people have said, yes, why are we not doing this? It makes financial sense. It makes sense with, you know, the labor shortages we have right now. There's moms that want to work and cannot, as you said. You know, as the cost of childcare rises, moms drop out of the labor force.
You make those tough decisions. Does it even make sense to work if we're paying this much out of pocket to send our kids?
Yeah, and that's what I did when we have an 11-year-old and then 9-year-old twins and a 4-year-old. When our twins were born, I left my full-time job because it was taking everything to pay for daycare.
It's really expensive. And on the other hand, too, you know that there is a cost associated with taking care of children. So you don't want to see those childcare workers underpaid.
Right,
but
absolutely.
Something has to give.
Yeah, that's where the gap is. I mean, I've been a childcare worker. I worked at Tender Care, which is a local chain, and I loved it. But at the time, and this was over a decade ago, we made less than $10 an hour, and I had a bachelor's degree. But we couldn't charge the parents more because they were paying as much as they could.
Right.
And that gap is what's missing that other countries have, that federally subsidized childcare.
And you even talked about that too. I saw in a couple of your responses back and retweets, you talked about the impact of being able to subsidize childcare and what that would really do for the economy. Most people think, oh, it's going to cost too much to do that, but you think the opposite.
Yeah, and it didn't really come from me. There's a Bloomberg report, and in the Fair Play documentary that Eve Rodsky did for Netflix, they talk about this. You know, adding subsidized childcare would increase our GDP, it's estimated, over $1 trillion because of what we would add back to the labor force, the workers we would pay, all of that, you know, and I'm not an economist, but other countries are doing it because it makes financial sense. Like, it's not a handout. It's not saying, I had these kids, take care of them for me. It's saying, I want to be a productive member of society, I want to work, but I cannot when childcare is costing almost what I make.
I mean, really, when you hear about daycare centers and what they're charging, and the younger your kids are, the more expensive they are.
Yeah.
So when you were sitting down at your computer and you were typing this email signature, was there something that had happened that had pushed you to that point to write that?
Yeah, you know, there was a client who was not a bad client and just wondered why I had not responded in, I think, about 18 hours to an email that was honestly not urgent, but I think we're in a society where you feel like, like you see it pop up on your phone and you're like, oh, I need to respond. And we had field day, we had things going on, you know, I'm really involved at my kids' school and I wanted to focus on those things. And I just was like, you know what, rather than doing an out of office when we're physically not in Pittsburgh, I'm gonna just put a rider on my signature that says, I might not respond right away. If we're at Sandcastle, I'm not responding.
Yeah.
You know?
I love this too. I want to do this.
Do it.
Because at 4 o'clock, when I'm done with work, I want to be done with work. I
Right.
want to focus on what's important too at home.
Yeah.
Where do you think, what happens next? Where are you taking this next?
You know, I'm not sure, because again, it's funny, I joke, you know, I spend all this time writing these articles that really matter to me, and it's the kind of off-the-cuff thing that strikes a chord, but at the same time, I've been in this field for decades. Before I was a journalist, I worked in daycares, I worked in early intervention, I was a state caseworker, post-adoption support worker. Like, I've been in families' homes, hundreds and hundreds of families' homes.
Right.
So I think just using this little bit of a platform I've been given to highlight this issue, to talk to moms, dads too, although it is primarily women that leave the workforce.
Right.
And just put a spotlight on it, you know. But this summer, we're gonna hang out as much as we can.
Well, I am so glad that you raised this issue, that we're having this conversation, and thank you for joining us today to continue it.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks,
It's great to
Meg.
be here. Thank you.